So today we're going to do an arrangement in a vase, and you can see here I've got two types of vases. Cylinder vases are really useful for making just a bunch in a vase. I'm going to show you how to do a little one in this little vase, which is 15 centimeters by 10 centimeters across. The bigger one is something a bit optional. You can see with the bigger bouquet I've got here that I've used this size vase, and this one is 25 centimeters high and 12 centimeters across. Well, you can see that all I've done is I've chopped different bits, and really I've looked for a little bit of difference in colour and texture with the materials that I've found. I have supplemented it with some laurel, and that just gives a little bit of contrast, because you can see from these other foliages they're much finer. And I'm going to add another little bit of texture in there with some rosemary. Now, to add a little bit more colour in there, I've got some of this lovely little shrub which is coloured nice and sort of a bronzy colour, and you can see that that's just going to add a dash of colour in there. And then to create again a slightly different texture, I'm going to add just a touch of conifer. So really it's all about trying to find contrasts. So without further delay, I'm going to really start with my bigger material, which is the laurel. And you can see what I've done is I've chopped it down so that it's roughly this length of the vase on top of the vase. And you can see the foliage fits in really easily. And then I'm going to cut the material so it's all the same length. And I'm just going to rotate that around. See, and that gives me a little bit of structure to work with, because of course you have to start somewhere, and you'll find that the materials just flop all over the place in the beginning. So with that in mind as well, I'm going to add the conifer, because again that will create a little bit of density in there to just hold the other materials, which I'm going to put in after, in place. So let's do that with 3 pieces of the conifer. It doesn't matter how many stems you use. It's always traditional that you should use odd numbers, but it really doesn't matter. This is about enjoying what you're doing, not having to abide by every rule that somebody else has come up with. So you can see that that gives me a little bit of structure, and you can see these little points are a little bit taller than the base. Yeah, but that doesn't matter. A little bit of up and down is nice. It makes it a little bit more playful. Add one more in there, I think. There. So I've got some bits of the material. Now, a good way, if you want to roughly know how to judge where to initially cut the flowers or the materials you're using, is to hold it in front so you can see, and that will give you a nice, easy way of doing it. Obviously, doing it towards you might be a little bit easier than doing it the way I was showing you, but obviously that is to explain it to you. Every time I use one type of material, you can see that I'm not doing a pick and mix the whole time, and that is so that I can place materials so that they stand out in the right spot. A little bit more there, and then it's a little bit taller than I wanted it. You can see that I'm taking the material, I'm taking the leaves off. I'll show you with this is a good way to show you. So say that's the height, like that. What I don't want to have is lots of foliage here in the bottom, because that will go in the water. So just clear those bits away so you have a nice clean stem, so that when you do put the stem in, you can see that down here there's no foliage in the water, because that will just make the water go dirty very quickly. So, yeah, if you find that you've cut a material slightly too short, or don't worry about it. You can get a little het up about a lot of things in life, and really there are better things to worry about. Now I'm going to add some of this lovely bronzy coloured foliage, and there are some dead bits in there and little bits of seed head, but actually they all add to the natural feel of what we're doing. I'm doing this fairly quickly, and you don't have to, of course. You can take as much time as you like. And also think about the bottom bits here. So if you've got a shorter piece like that, you don't have to throw it away. You can just put it a little bit more towards the side, one side, so the colour goes down a little bit too. Now, normally with a bouquet in a vase, we would have all the stems going in the same direction. And you can see here it's a little bit of a mishmash. Okay. Now, if I was doing this in a really technical way, I would urge you to make sure the stems go all the same way. But actually for this, I think, yeah, we're showing something natural with foraged materials. So let's just be a little bit relaxed. And so, yeah, in the beginning, you'll probably think, oh, it's moving, but don't worry. The more we put in, the more it balances itself out. There we are. See, and you can sort of style it a bit as you go along. Now, I found these lovely little blossom twigs, and the reason why I've kept these back till now is because otherwise they will literally just flop everywhere. And I'm going to let those sit a little bit proud of the other materials, so I want to show those off. But you can see now they catch in amongst the other foliage. So, a little bit on the wrong side. And it makes it sort of multi-layered in a way, I suppose. And just taking a thorn off there. And that just gives it a little bit of looseness. And hopefully these little blossoms will come out. There's no reason why they shouldn't. There. And I'm also putting them towards the outside. Too long. One more. Let's go just there. So I just want to see, I want to get a little bit more here. It's a little bit too green and a bit empty, so I'm going to put a little bit of conifer in there, just to fill that side up a bit and let it come down a bit too. And you can pull things, you see it's like it's made in foam, it sits so nice and tight. Now, a little bit more of that too, so. Let's see, like that. You've got a nice simple little arrangement of different greenery and some nice sticky outy blooms. Again, with this, I'm leaving that a little bit longer to let those lovely buds from the horse chestnut stick out above the other materials. And also you can see by layering them, if I put that in between all the rest, I know it's pretty, but it kind of disappears. It creates almost too much of a muchness. Whereas by just lifting it slightly, you can still see the materials underneath, but that creates like a different layer. And almost you get 3 layers with the tips of the blossom. You have to sometimes, I thought I was going by the side of the vase there. You get a little bit too enthusiastic, and then you find that you're putting stems next to the vase, which is obviously not a good idea. Now, a little tip for when you do branches is when you've cut them, and you can do that with a pair of secateurs, and because obviously this will need a good drink of water, is to just cut that once down the middle. So you get like a little split in the stem, and that will just help it drink. So, there we go. We've got it that far. Now I know that I do what I call flower workshops, and I have a flower school. And you'll notice that this doesn't have a single flower in it. And in one way, is that a problem? It isn't, because that is absolutely beautiful. But if you do want some flowers, I have some nice little daffodils, which I have also foraged. And maybe just, I'm going to add a couple so you can see, and it's really up to you whether you think it is necessary or whether you think you can do without them. So these I put in last anyway, and that's because the daffodils, and as you all know, daffodils have got really, really soft stems, and if you put them in early, then what you'll find is that you'll just crush them when you put all the other materials in. So it's good to do the foliage first and then add these a little later. Just give it a bit of a wobble, and that will allow it to go in. Because this vase is now really already quite full. There. And these lovely sort of a creamy daffodil was just growing at the side of the road. And so we've got a little bunch of foraged, supplemented with a little bit from the garden. But we've got a nice little simple vase of flowers. Yeah. If you wanted to go for the big ones, then obviously you would need a bigger vase, and obviously the stems need to be longer. So if you want something more dramatic, yeah, some nice long stems. It doesn't need to be horse chestnut. Have a look what's out there in terms of trees with nice buds on that are going to open up, and then maybe look for some blossom branches, yeah, and very simply placed into a vase. And these are just the foliage that have growing outside on the anemone. So the anemone plants outside. So yeah, you can do whatever you like, and relation to the size of what you want to create. Just looking at this, and there's always, you can tweak things forever, and I always suggest not doing that and actually taking a break when you've finished. Don't start messing about with it. Yeah, if you take a little step away, have a coffee or a tea, and then come back to it, and then if you think, oh, actually, that might just be better if we just change it a little bit, you can do it then. So that's what I'm just going to do with the daffodils. I'm going to make them a little bit shorter, so they sit a little bit closer to the foliage. Oh. It's always very tempting, and you can always see mistakes in what you do. Once you've finished doing something, you can look, because you're looking in detail. But what I urge you to do is, as I say, just step away from the vase for a short while, and then, as I say, come back to it, and if you really think you need to tweak something, do it then. So, yeah, you can see I'm just lowering that a little bit, and I think it's just because otherwise the daffodils almost overshadow those lovely green materials, and bringing them down a bit creates a connection with the greens a little bit more effectively. So I'm just literally cutting ½ an inch off the stems, still a little bit more, and there we are. So you can see that it's just really the horse chestnut and the blossom twigs that sort of stick out, so to speak. And I just think that creates a little bit more of a balanced arrangement. So yes, there we are.